Today we're going to talk about painting surfaces and in particular the differences between canvas and linen. I will also test out both surfaces with oil paints and see which one is more effective. Before we get started, if you have any questions about painting, especially oils and water mixable oils, then please leave me a question in the comments below. There are a wide variety of surfaces that you can paint on. Just to explain the fact that the surface itself should have a tooth. That means it should have a bit of a texture to it, so be mindful of this, especially if you are buying an MDF panel. This is so that the paint can bond with the surface. If it's completely smooth, say for example a wooden panel, it's really difficult to get even coverage. The main difference between cotton and linen is the weave. The weave of the linen is finer, and this means that the surface texture of the linen is smoother surface to paint on. The material is also different, as cotton canvas is made from cotton and linen canvas is made from flax. Flax is a fibre that is very robust and resistant to decay, so if you are painting on linen it will last a very long time indeed. Because it is robust, it doesn't sag like some cotton canvas can do. This is why it's often the preferred choice of portrait artists. The reason for this is because it is easier to apply fine details like eyelashes, for example. This doesn't mean that detail is the most important element of all paintings, but for those artists wishing to achieve a detailed effect, they may want to try out a linen canvas. The soft fibres of the cotton make it much easier for stretching. The other main difference to take into account is the price. A linen canvas is going to be more expensive than a cotton canvas, so until you are entirely happy with your painting skills and technique, you may want to practice on cotton canvas or paper if you want to achieve a smooth effect. But before you make up your mind, why not watch me try out 4 different densities of linen and canvas to see the comparison between the 5 different samples. So now I'm going to start testing out canvas versus linen. I'm testing out 4 different samples of linen. I recently did a Jackson's haul, and if you want to watch that, please click on the card above. But I did state that I would be testing these out at some point, so I'm going to test out these 4 different types of linen. The first 2 are gummed and the second 2 aren't gummed, so it'll be interesting to see how they fare. And then the last thing that I will test will be the canvas. So the first one that I'm testing is the Bella Arti Extra Fine Linen, which is 207 GSM and it is clear glue sized. The second one will be Bella Arti Fine Linen 361 GSM and that is clear glue sized also. If you wanted to try these linens out yourself, then go to the description below and you'll find links to the Jackson's website where you can order these and try them out for yourselves. It's a great opportunity to try these linens out at a very reasonable price, because obviously to buy these at a roll is fairly expensive. So this will get you the opportunity to try these out before you purchase them on a roll to put them onto a canvas. So I found that the first sample was very smooth and was able to glide onto the canvas very easily, or the linen, I keep calling it canvas, but the linen very smoothly, because it was a fairly fine standard of canvas, being 207 GSM, but also it had been sized, which means that it had a layer of glue put on top of it. This made it fairly easy for applying the paint. The second sample was fine linen, but it was 361 GSM, which meant that the density of the linen wasn't as smooth, but it still had the glue, which meant that it could glide fairly easily. So for the third sample, we have Bella Arti Extra Fine Linen 198 GSM, and we have Art Fix Extra Fine Linen 210 GSM. The difference between the lower ones and the upper ones are that they are unprimed, which means they are not treated with clear glue. This means that they will not be as smooth as the ones on the upper layer. That means number 1 and 2. So as I started to add the mid-tone to the sphere, I noticed that the 2 top samples, as expected, because they've been treated with clear glue, it was much easier to apply the water-soluble oils than it was to the lower 2. it was almost as if the paint was soaking into the linen in the bottom two, and that was even with it being treated with the gesso. So this is a lesson for the future for myself, that I certainly do need to have the linens treated with the clear glue. And it also means that when I'm doing skin tones, that I certainly again will need to have that glue if I want a really smooth skin tone. And that was why I was doing this sample test run with the spheres, because it shows what you would want to achieve with a skin tone. So now I'm starting to blend out all of the strokes with a filbert brush. As expected, I find this much easier on the top two spheres than I do on the bottom two. However, with some of them I have to reapply the paint, but I am finding that the technique on the top two spheres is much smoother than on the bottom. With the bottom two spheres I can see some grain and some of the weave coming through, because as I mentioned earlier, though I applied 3 layers of gesso, I can still see some of the grain, and that's because it doesn't have that glue on the surface. So now we move on to the canvas. As you can see already, the grain of the canvas shows through the gesso. I did add only 2 layers of gesso rather than 3, because the gesso was already added, the white gesso, but I wanted to add the coloured gesso on top, and you can see that grain is already shining through. I did find that it did glide because of the amount of gesso that was on there. However, it didn't glide as well and wasn't as smooth as the top 2 layers, the linen with the glue. And also I found that the paint was soaking in as it did with the bottom 2 linen. However, it was actually soaking in more. As you can see, I'm struggling to find the paint to go round. I have to keep reapplying it because I'm finding it quite dry. What I did find different than the 2 bottom layers of linen, that's the ones that weren't treated with the glue, was that it did blend really well. As you can see, I didn't struggle with the blending, it blended really well. I managed to create a smooth skin tone. So this would be okay for the portraits, but I don't know how it will fare with the details. So now I'm going to compare the different types of densities of linens with adding detail and the canvas. So I'm starting with a really fine detail brush and adding a line as if I would be adding eyelashes. This is the first density and that was perfectly fine. And this is the second density. Both of these ones are the ones with glue. So these are as I would expect. The brush is gliding perfectly well. These ones are the ones without the glue, and as you can see, they're dragging a little bit once the paint starts to come off. So the first one's fine, there's lots of paint, and then the second one is starting to drag a tiny bit and you can see the grain coming through. And again, certainly now the paint, you can see it's certainly starting to dry out. So that's not good, and if I was doing eyelashes that would not be good enough, and you can see now why certainly you need to have that glue on. This is the canvas, and look, straight away we're seeing some grain coming through. You can now see why portrait artists look for using linen, because look at that, you can see that grain, and that shows you 100% why you would look to using linen if you can. So here we have the extra fine linen 207 GSM with clear size glue. As you can see, it has a really smooth finish. And here we have the fine linen 361 GSM clear size glue. Again, it has a fairly smooth finish, but not as smooth as the last one. This one is not as smooth. It's the extra fine linen 198 GSM unprimed. And then the next one, Art Fix Extra Fine 210 Unprimed, again not as smooth. This one is the canvas, and as you can see we've got a lot of grain coming through and the fine lines aren't as fine. You can see here a direct comparison between the two, and you can really see the difference between the linen and the canvas. If you would like to try these linen samples for yourself, then why not check the description below, where you'll find details of where you can get these samples from Jackson's. If you would like to find out more about oil paints, then why not check out my oil paints playlist. And if you have any specific questions about using oil paints or any paints at all, then why not ask me a question in the comments.